So hey, I've been experiencing a nuisance, and I kind of convinced my mom is guilty of some type of Russian interference, or at least some type of spy. Um, I'm at an old age where I would convince I'll be treated more like an adult man, and my mother is. I'm home, but I actually convinced my mother is involved in some type of spy that's keeping me inside the home, and it's some type of Russian involvement, and including Wayne Allen Matum. So it's not norm to hear no one calling or um, that's my own father, at least the like what's going on. But the thing is, I'm having a tough time having a date, or at least for the past 10 years, or at least even having a job. So there's numerous bad things going on, but I'm kind of convinced that my mom and her has created a cluster of issues, and she isn't the most intelligent person, but I convinced there's a crime being committed that's keeping me inside, or there's something. It's not normal to be suffocated for so long. So she doesn't encourage me to go find a girlfriend. She doesn't encourage me. There's no encouragement at all. There's not even motivation. There's not even. There's nothing. But the thing is, I don't get that from my father neither. Um, so I've been getting the feeling that there is a bit of a group of their own contacts giving me pressure, and including other officers. I kind of convinced there's officers that know my mother and my father. There's a series of obstruction where they're feeling of corruption involved, but it's a bit too, it's to the point where there's just way too many officers. It's just way too, over 100 officers that are involved in some kind of corruption, or let's say 1,000, over 1,000 officers, because it's a large number. Um, it's to the point where you think that you want them to be swapped out by another city, to the point convinced that things would have a new mindset towards there's a shift overnight, or at least within the month. The thing is, yeah, right now, even the police officers are wearing hairstyles of gang members, or at least like they're North Daniels. At least when I was visiting at the main jail, I mean, to the point where obviously there's a mob structure, but it's to the point where, you know, there's intimidation to the point where I guess there's a point where lack of safety or Sheldon, or there's not really much communication to convince that there is a great influencer. Is kind of to the point where even when I would spend my time in that type of environment, I don't necessarily find any. There's not really much. So, or at least convinced that someone's willing to communicate or bring up some type of drama. I've been experiencing a bit of drama on a daily, and yeah, so it's creating a nuisance. But every day I'm more interested in moving on. I think I'm kind of convinced that there's crimes that's slowing progress, and yeah, I'm having a big issue. I'm having sleep difficulties also. It's not a paranoia, but feeling that there's something, um, a lack of even having a relationship, a lack of, to the point where I kind of convinced there's something intruding on my life, where it's not enough getting another, convinced that of gaining a new life or with someone else. But um, yeah, so to to seek relation does take a medication. It, if anything, maybe take a little bit of working out, but um, I'm getting the impression that some officers or the president may give false statements as if I need medication when I don't necessarily need medication. So I kind of convinced there's the reason why they use population control tactic of the subconscious. I kind of convinced there's a sex trade, or the feeling that all of a sudden is cock blocking me to have my own relationship. It's an unusual behavior, but it's convinced that there is profit that someone or group is gaining to the point where there's an excuse or they attempt to have a relation to control or to so I'm having a trust issue because I don't necessarily see myself downsizing myself to undermining myself as if false impression of mental illness is not necessarily going to allow other groups to convince you're the one to be hired or convince that you have leadership. Normally, it takes all your leadership qualities away as soon as someone actually brings up mental illness. So it's like, oh, it just it's not even a normal. You think that you can run the store, but yeah. So I'm getting the impression that it's to the point there's a bit too much harassment, intense. But I'm kind of convinced that there's if there's other wealthy families that are maybe actually harassing me over wealth, or if there's so electronic harassment. But I've even begun gaining a feeling of thrill. I'm having an issue right now, but I kind of convinced there's a spy that's causing the feeling of so there's like a Russian interference, but kind of convinced my own mother needs to be recited and my father needs to be recited. It's not normal to be like in your in. It's not normal to be on a short leash. Um, you know, it's kind of normal to have someone, a wingman, to look out. But I'm having a little bit of an issue in Sacramento, California, of gaining a strong wingman, or at least a one that has a strong mindset. Or at least maybe I need to get out. But that comes with transportation. I'm missing out on it, and it's not normal. I kind of convinced that my mother has some type of senile or the feeling that there's the old age. I had a vehicle 8 years ago. 8 years ago is a long time. You can do well in 8 years. You would think you probably make $500,000 in 8 years, or a little more than maybe 5 million. But the thing is, um, that's a lot of time to be wasting. And my own family doesn't necessarily contact me to say what's going on. It's to the point where I kind of convinced involvement in harassment or bullying, the feeling that they're being cyberbullied, cyber attack, security breach, and it's coming from my own father. But there's also a feeling of communication, or if there's my father is involved in Russian interference. Because I kind of convinced my mother definitely is. But my father is the one I want another group to confront. Um, because the trash, obviously, I can't imagine someone handcuffing my mother convinced she's a spy. And my father doesn't want to talk to me, and usually maybe there is spy. And I'm not necessarily mental. I'm kind of convinced there's other officers that are know about spy. So it's not just my mother. There's other group of officers that know there is a spy that's spying on me. So that's where I was trying to bring up the feeling that there is a crime, and it's not normal to be missing out on relationship or even be involved you know in, in school or so. Yeah, it's to the point where I definitely feel like I'm being left out, and that's not normal to just no contact, or at least um, these officers in Elk Grove know what I'm experiencing, but they make lies that there is illness. And I guess that would made me go against America, where I was like, "Oh, you can't really have spirit of oath against America when these officers in large numbers are almost to the point where they're creating a war, and that they're out trying to outnumber individual, or at least myself, so yeah. When I'm interested to move on with progress, it didn't come close to that. It almost seemed like My mother didn't know how to communicate to me. My father didn't know how to communicate to me, but there's a feeling of a spy of interference, or at least to communicate to them. And yeah, so it's almost to the point where it's the comprehend. My mother doesn't comprehend too well to the point where, and my father seemed like he comprehends. He's at a genius level, and my mother's not a genius to the point where it's probably easier to control the life of my mother, to the point where you guess you can almost make it look there is a bit of innocence. But my father, he wouldn't necessarily have the sign of innocence, because it's to the point where he's a mind of it. He has a mind of a genius. It's like, whoa, why doesn't he have a job if your father's a genius?